Let me tell you about my fellow countryman, Kjell Inge Røkke. He was a school dropout, but he became one of Norway's richest persons. On his road to success lies dead bodies, many acts of ruthlessness, total determination, and a lot of corruption, and the story about illegal Russian fishing. Kjell Inge, he was born in Molde. That's a little town on the west coast of Norway. At the age of 16, he was a school dropout. He just quit school. He had dyslexia, so at school he never performed any well. One of his teachers told him, Kjell Inge, you are so stupid that you won't even pass the driver's license exam. What a moron. So stupid that he became one of Norway's richest persons. When he was 16 years old, he also stole his father's car, and he drove, and he drank, and he was drinking, and he was caught by the police, and he ended up in prison. Or actually in Norway, when you are only 16, you can't go to prison. He received a fine. One day, his mother waked him up and said to him, Kjell Inge, I got you a job. A job? What job? In 30 minutes, you started as a fisherman on this fish boat. 30 minutes! So Kjell Inge just jumped in his clothes and he started working at this fishing boat. When you are a new member of a crew at a fishing boat, you start working in the engine room. But Kjell Inge, he was smart, he was eager, and he was a quick learner. So soon he was promoted to be a real fisherman. After he had been working there for some years, one of his buddies told him, Kjell Inge, if you really want to make money, you have to go to USA. You have to go to America, because there's where the big bucks are. So Kjell Inge, he booked a flight ticket and got himself to Seattle, where he signed up for working at a fish boat over there. The schedule for the boat was that they made 2 trips every day. So the first trip took 8 hours, they changed the crew, and another trip took another 8 hours. So Kjell Inge, he didn't have time to any breaks, so he worked both shifts. He worked 16 hours every single day, 6 days a week. After 2.5 years, he had enough money saved up to buy his own fish boat. His dream was going through, and from then on, the money just kept pouring in for Kjell Inge. No, sadly, it didn't happen that way. It seldom does. He experienced that the boat he bought, it was slow. It was much slower than the other boat. So when his boat was out to the sea where they were going to go into fish, it used longer time. And when they were fishing, they used longer time to get the fish into the boat, and they used longer time going back to the fish reception to offload their cargo. So when his competitors were getting 2 or 3 cargoes to shore, he was only getting 1. So after 2 years, he went bankruptcy and he had to sell the boat. But Kjell Inge, he had great spirit. He thought, if I just work 4 years next time, then I can buy another boat, a bigger boat, and this time I will be a success. But he was lucky, because Robert Breckowicz, a fellow fisherman, and who was from a rich family, he had seen the work Kjell Inge was ready to Kjell Inge put down in his business. So he told him, if you work and I have the cash, then we can buy a boat together and we can partner up. And so they did. This time, things went much better for Kjell Inge. He got 4 boats with 4 captains with 4 new crews. And his system for success was that he made the fishermen and the captains earn much more money than what other captains and other fishermen on other boats as his competitors earned. He had a system and where if they worked fast, if they worked many hours, if they worked efficient, they would get much more money paid than all the other fishermen in Seattle. And that works. For Kjell Inge's boats, they fished fast and they were very efficient. But everyone knew if you're not giving 110% working for Kjell Inge, you will get fired. So one day, there was a bad weather forecast coming. It was a storm, but the captains of Kjell Inge boats, they knew we can't be at shore just because there's coming a storm. So they went out fishing, but one of his boats, unfortunately, went down, and 3 people died. And Kjell Inge got sued because the relatives of the crew members that died, thought that Kjell Inge was forcing them out fishing, even though he knew there were bad weather coming. The courts ruled for Kjell Inge, and they said that it was the captain for the fish boat that was responsible for the accident. But everyone knows. Come on, everyone knows. If you were working for Kjell Inge and you didn't fish, you will get fired. So everyone knows it was Kjell Inge that somehow he didn't point the gun to the head of the captain, go out fish, but he knew how Kjell Inge would react if he didn't go out fishing. Then we are coming to the mid-80s. And mid-80s in America or otherwise in the world, it was bad times. It was a recession. And back in Norway has these big shipyards around the coast. And these shipyards, they didn't have any work. So the workers, they had to leave for unemployment. But the country Norway that is really rich didn't want this. So they made a government incentives. If someone was willing to build the boat, the oil platform or something else at one of the Norwegian shipyards, the government in Norway would lend the one that was building the money for building the boat at the shipyards. And then Kjell Inge and Robert Brestovic made this master plan. They sailed all ships from America to Norway, get them built them to a factory trawler. Do you know what a factory trawler is? A factory trawler, they fish, and when the fish gets on board in the boat, they don't bring it back to the fish reception. No, they cut it and they prepare it for market in the boat. Quite smart. So if you have a factory trawler, you are able to fish and deliver fish more efficient to the market. So Kjell Inge, he got 4 boats paid by the Norwegian government, you can say, because he could get the boats and pay back to the government when he earned money. So he had started with 4 boats and he just killed the market. He was fishing much more than everyone else and he could deliver fish more efficiently to the market. So they were literally making tons of money. Then they got a big surprise, because in every country right now you have this called fish quote. That will say, if I have a boat, I'm only allowed to fish so much fish in a certain time of year. But Kjell Inge, he wanted to fish and fish and fish, but then suddenly he wasn't allowed to fish anymore. So what could he do? He had a lot of boats. I think he had 12 boats at the time, and they couldn't fish for most of the time. So then we have to go to Russia. And here's the story about illegal fishing and Russia. In 1986, you do remember that the Berlin Wall that came down, and the Soviet Union, they were dissolved. There was a new president, Mikhail Gorbachev, who recently passed, and suddenly the Soviet Union, they were not being a communist country anymore. They should be more like the Western countries or America. But that didn't work so good at the start, so the economic, that just collapsed. And late 80s, early 90s, it was corruption all over Russia. Some say it's still corruption all over Russia, but in the late 80s and early 90s, it was really bad. So Kjell Inge, he went to Vladivostok, this Russian city up in the north, because the Barents Sea where they were fishing, Barents Sea, they have borders to Canada, to America, to Norway, and to Russia. So Kjell Inge went up to Vladivostok, and he bribed Russian officials and the Russian Coast Guard. So he was allowed to fish in Russian waters. He fished with his factory trawlers, big trawlers. They were swooping up the fish, and he delivered the fish to the market in America. So his fish was from Russia, but who cares? He delivered it in America, making a huge profit. In a Norwegian podcast series, this was revealed for 1 year ago. And Kjell Inge's second in command, Kjell Inge Røkke, he disclosed how he bought cars in Norway. He filled them with electronic and food and other goods, and he drove them to Russia as a payment to these officials that were being bribed of Kjell Inge and Robert Brestovic. And they earned a lot of money. And Kjell Inge Røkke at this podcast series, he told them he did that trip almost 30 times. 30 times he drove cars over the border from Norway to Russia. And in order to pay the Russian officials. Things were going well for Kjell Inge. He earned a lot of money fishing, illegal fishing in Russia. But then a law was passed in America saying that only American citizens could own or fish in American waters. So Kjell Inge, he could no longer be a Norwegian citizen fishing in America. So he sold his companies, all his fish boats, all his companies, and he made $200 million. And he took the money back to Norway. And in the next part of this series, I'm going to tell you about how he took those $200 million and became one of Norway's richest persons. And he did it by bribe, by hitman. He spent time in prison. You won't believe this story. And he did it with bags of money. Yeah. So, I hope you like this story so far. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and then I hope to see you in the next one.